everybody. Vija Williams here with Place, and I am so excited to introduce our Power Playbooks webinar today. This is a topic that is kind of the topic. I get this question in a lot of different ways and worded a lot differently in a lot of different contexts. And that basically is, how do you get out of production as a team operator, as a team leader? So I chose 3 of our place partners today who have done that, and also who are going back and forth with doing that, right? Because I think that it's a relevant conversation. Sometimes going out of production is a process, not an event. And we have to think of it that way, right? There's different seasons of our business that sometimes the business needs us in, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about, what does that mean going out of production? Like, does it mean you absolutely by definition have to sell 0 homes a year? Is it really just saying, I'm just going to be the minority salesperson on the team? Is it 12 homes a year, 1 home a month? What does it actually mean to go out of production? We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to go through the steps on, how these amazing business people did it. So I do want to kind of introduce everybody so that you have a context for how impressive these 3 humans are. Nick Waldner, say hello, my friend.
Hello, Nick Waldner.
The only dude in the house, right now. So it's like kind of easy to spot like who Nick is, but you are a rock star. You've done 4.7 million in GCI over the last 12 months, and that's about 400 units and about 200 million in sales volume. And that's outside of Baltimore, or is it in Baltimore?
It's the entire state of Maryland. So if you're looking for someone in Maryland, we got you.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. That's really, really impressive. How many agents do you have, Nick?
I have 17 agents, and I would say 4 of them are newer agents that are just getting their feet under them. So really the bulk of that production is from the other 14.
Awesome. I totally get that. Yep. How many homes have you sold in the last rolling 12 months?
I think you said 400. So I think it's 406. I mean, if you want to get it really accurate.
You sold personally.
Oh, personally, me? I think 1.
Okay.
It was a buddy of mine who called from college and said, hey, there's this waterfront property. It looks like a good price. You want to go see it? And I was like, yeah. And he bought it. But other than that, I typically don't sell any to anyone. I will, however, help some of our newer agents. I'll step in and go to an appointment here or there. I'll do some shadow stuff with people, but the majority of the work, I'm not interested. It takes away from what I need to be doing to build the team.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I love that. Sarissa Journaud. I just asked you to. Journaud does sound fancy though.
So fancy. I love it.
It's Tarjay.
I know it is. Journaud at Tarjay. You're in Dallas, Sarissa. You've done 2.2 million GCI and about 170 units and 74 million in volume, and that was last year. And that, is impressive as that is, you were telling me earlier that that's actually down even for you, right? You'd done a lot more the year before, because you were out of production and now you're back in. Is that fair?
I'm back in a little bit. I just, I wasn't touching really anything before, and now I am touching more of the transactions, and that's okay. It's just a season. So
yeah, for sure. For sure it is. Yeah, I love that. And Barb Dopp, Boise, Idaho, 1.6 million, 125 units at about 50 million volume. How many agents do you have, Barb? And how many, sales have you personally made?
Yeah, that 125 is the lowest we've done since 2010. So it, partly market driven, partly focus driven, I would say. And I think last year I did 4 transactions. I won't do it unless it doesn't make sense not to do it. I'm not looking for it.
Yeah.
So I lead generate and give those to my team.
Yeah. So Barb, why did you get out of production? Like, why did you think it was better for your business or better for you to get out of production and not sell a year?
I didn't start real estate until I was 49 years old. And I never have seen myself, I'm just gonna, die doing real estate. I never thought that way. My husband retired at age 55, which was 12 years ago. Yeah, about 12 years ago. And so, you know, and in the peak of production, I was probably closing 100 to 120 sides myself, with the team doing an equal amount of those. That stress level was really high. And so I just,
insane. That's an insane amount of units.
that's a lot. And running the business, you know,
That's
on
10 a
top of
month.
that. So the high stress, and I just can't comprehend building something and then just stop answering the phone and let it die. Like, I can't comprehend that. So the choice is to grow to the point that it can go on without you.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Nick, what did you spend time doing when you got out of production, and why did you get out of production? Like, what sort of drove that?
Well, I've kind of the weirdest story about it. I was in production and I had been hiring and growing agents under me, and I could not let go. I got a phone call, hey, we really want to work with you. And I'd be like, okay, I'll do it. And I did it again and again and again. I could not let go, even though I had talent around me. I'd grown some talent. And eventually I got offered a TV show, Waterfront House Hunting. And the only thing that I could do is travel 26 days out of the month in order to do that show. And we shot all over the country, and we did 14 episodes. And it was like 8 or 9 months of travel where I just was not in the state. So I sat down with my coach and we worked through it. And we looked at that as that is the opportunity to get yourself out of the business, to trust the people that you're handing the business to. Let them fail, let them make mistakes, let them learn and grow as agents. And I could not step back in because I physically wasn't in the state for that 8-month time, for 3-4 days a month at most. That was like the pinnacle of getting me out of production. So when I came back after the 8 months and the season was airing and all that, now I'm back home, I forced myself to stay in that mindset of keeping out of production.
When you got back from filming TV, what did you spend your time on when you weren't producing? What were you doing instead?
Oh man, first I caught back and I started meddling in everything and probably annoying half my team. And then I started thinking about, well, what value can I give them? How can I improve our processes? How can I improve our operations, our systems? What lead generation methods can I now focus on? Because I'm not spending my days running around with buyers and sellers. So it was really, how do I build a business that provides enough value so these talented agents never want to leave?
Yeah, totally get that. Sarissa, I'm really excited to talk to you about this, because I want to learn like what took you away from, getting out of production, and what brought you back.
Yeah. So I initially got out of production because I would always create these lists of like, where was I in my strength zone and when was I not? And so it would be like, what gives me energy, what does not? And so over the years, when I partnered basically with Place, call it that, in 2017, it's now Place, that, along that way, that was just the natural progression of where I was using my gifts and my strengths. And that was in more of a leadership, growing others role versus the sales. Also, when I thought about what sucks my energy, for me, at the time of my life with my kids and my family, honestly, real estate sales was like this constant cortisol hit. And like, my body was like, please stop. Like my family was like, please stop. And so that was really, those things were what ultimately pulled me out. And obviously I had to have certain business metrics that made sense for me to be out, certain financial, models that allowed me to be out. And what pulled me back in, we were doing about, let's just call it 360 units, 130-ish million, in sales. And, my number one agent and I, hit a point where after like 4 years in business, we just weren't on the same page morally, ethically, to where I could see that relationship continuing. And my business partner and I made the decision to say goodbye. So it was $1 million in income. 100 units. And then so he took his team, and then there's always some casualties after a loss like that. So then the second set of casualties, we had those conversations. And so I looked up, and I'm just going to shoot you guys totally straight. It was like friends and talent that I had invested in for 2 to 5 years. And I needed a breather. I literally sat there and was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Can I do this again? Do I want to do this again? If I do this again, what do I want it to look like? And I took about 3 months and just said, like, I need a minute. And and after the minute, I was like, okay, again, I'm going to shoot you straight again. The easier for me was to step back in and touch a few more sales.
Yeah.
I made an easier choice. Some may or may not have been the best choice, but it was the easier choice for me. And now I have the energy back to go, okay, it's time to grow, and let's look at these steps again.
Okay, so I love that though, because I think you're showing all of us that business isn't necessarily fixed. It's a process, right? That evolves and expands and contracts. I'm going to ask you a heavy, like a kind of a hard-hitting question right now. Do you feel like you failed coming back into production? Or are you okay with it?
I don't feel like I failed. I look back and I go, man, had I had my recruiting hat on all the time consistently, like I should have and could have, that might not have hit me so hard. And, but I also needed a minute to go, okay, this is what I've looked like and what business has looked like for X amount of time. As I evolve, what do I want it to look like in this next season? And I think I needed that minute which was longer than a minute, to sit in it and go, how does it feel? How do I feel? Am I okay? Like, and I don't mean to make it theatrical, but for me, like last year was just a rough year with business, life, and family and health. And so I kind of just had like all the things hit at once, and that was survival for me. And we all have, like, life happens.
The reason I don't think you're a failure at all, I want to be clear, and I'm asking you that because I believe business growth is autobiographical, and I think this conversation is, about creating a life by design, and the evolution of life and the undulations of life. It goes. Nick's golfing tomorrow, so undulation. Now all the golf terms are coming to me, Nick. Undulation. What am I thinking?
Yeah, honestly, like when I was feeling this way, I thought about, and this, you're going to think this is probably silly, but I think back to when you had to choose to rebuild your team years and years and years ago. And like you always said, if I built it once, I can build it again. And so I don't think of it as a failure. I think of it as it was a choice. And whatever I chose was actually okay for me.
100%.
What would have been okay is if I chose it for someone else, or if I did it because I felt like I had to.
100%. And Sarissa, on top of everything else, you said something really important, which was the market. And last year was a great year for a lot of people to go into production because of the market, right? We can analyze and strategize all we want, and to a certain degree, business success is survival. And if that's what it takes, if it takes 24 deals from an operator, 36 deals, so be it, right? We jump in and captain the ship when we need to. So bravo to you. I think it's great. Thank you for sharing and being super honest about it. That's a big topic with me. Team loss and going through that and rebuilding is not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough. And it's just simply an iteration and part of the process. You literally cannot be successful. Nick's gone through it. I'm sure Barb's gone through it. I know Nick has, just because we go back, but we've all gone, you simply cannot, Ben's gone through it. You cannot have a big business without going through at least like a major hire loss, if not a group of hires. I mean, does anyone disagree?
No, I think you're always going to have, those people that start to take things for granted, start to get very, what's the word? Entitled. Mm-hmm. And it took going through that. And I lost my number 1, number 3, number 6, and my top rookie all at once. And it took me, at first I was angry at them, and then I realized it's just about providing value. And how do I make sure that I provide enough value and have enough opportunity that they never want to leave? And then number two is, how do I keep track and make sure that my team is not becoming entitled? Like, I mean, the agent who left, he made $480,000 net commission to himself, and 68% of the business came from me.
Yeah.
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 We have that experience as well. Number one agent, been with me for 6 years. She came because she was sitting next to me, and I thought she was the one to take over. I've gone through so far 3 for certain people that I had the conversations with. The intention would be that they would replace me in running of this business, and all 3 of those are no longer here. So we're on 4.
Yeah, that's right. So Barb, let's stay on you for a minute. You know, what does getting out of production mean? Is it 0 units? Is it 12? Is it 24? Do you have a rule about this?
For me, when I'm out, it'll be 0. At this point, and for the last 3 years, I call myself like I'm a non-competing team leader. So I'll lead generate still, I'll take care of my database, but I'll always take somebody with me. I don't ever do anything without somebody with me, except those rare situations. And for me, yes, I intend a 100% exit. I'll still maintain ownership, just in talking to my business partners, Ben and Chris, come up with the right strategy for that. But it seems to make sense currently to maintain ownership of the company. I want to get to where I don't ever come to the office. Currently, I come to the office every day, and I can take a month or 6 weeks off and not have a problem. And I'll expand that to 3 months at a time. But once I get to that point, yeah, I'm for sure out.
So Barb, when you say you don't go on any appointments alone, just so I'm understanding, because I think this is really useful for everybody. If you take your database and you're still lead generating, and you might be responsible procuring cause for, I don't know, sort of 24 deals or whatever that's going to be a year. You bring another agent with you, you're saying it goes under their name. Do you take any percentage of that at all?
I take 10% as an ISA appointment set.
Got it.
Or if they ask, because we have splits on the team, I never take more than 50% to me as an agent, so to speak. But if somebody else needs my help on a listing or a buyer consult, I'm going to take a piece of that if that appointment is less than a 50-50.
Got it. Sarissa or Nick, how do you, well, Nick, you do, really no business, right? And so
that sounds great.
Well, I mean, your team does a massive amount of business, but you're not really selling at all. You sold 1 home, right?
Sure.
I that did come out really bad. Anyway, words matter. I own that. But so Nick, when your database calls and past clients call, and you're assigning them to other agents, it's completely in their name. Do you have any part of that? Do you get any cut of that, so to speak?
No, I whatever the team split is. So for us, it's, I think 40% on the buy side, or 45 on the buy side, 25 or 30 on the listing side. Whatever that split is, the agent gets all of that. Because my goal is to make the introduction, make sure the client knows I'm there. If there's a problem, call me. If you will just want my opinion or you want to talk through something, I'm always available. But the expert in the field is so-and-so. And I want to make sure that you get somebody who's doing this every day. And I'll tell people, I really appreciate you calling me. I sold 1 house last year, and I really kind of fell into that one. You want somebody with their finger on the pulse, who knows the market. I've got the greatest agent for you. Let me introduce you. And you get me and them, me and her, me and him throughout the whole transaction.
That's great. Sarissa, how much I know the answer to this, but I want our viewers to hear it. How much do you pay yourself on your personal business?
I don't know how to answer that. Can you tell me? What do you mean?
Do you pay yourself? Do you pay yourself 100% of your income? Like when you sell a home personally, how much do you
sale?
So I'm on a 50-50 split with the team, if you will. So So when I go out and sell, but for the 2.5 years where I was out of the business, if you will, it's because one of my key indicators of whether I was ready was if I had an agent that I felt like could do business like me, meaning I trained them, like they could step in and my sphere would personality match as much as I would. And so when I was out for those couple of years, that person was literally me. And so I would sometimes do the initial listing consult or buyer consult, and then that I never had to think about it again. It was out of my brain. And so really when I say I was out, I was still in it by doing some of the work. So I was typically taking 30 or 35%. That person was taking the 15 or the 20, but they were grateful for it because we were doing a bunch of business. And then obviously if they were the one that procured it, then obviously they were just at the 50-50 split.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is I kind of want to move in. Okay, what are the steps? Now, all of our operators watching and listening are likely here because they want to know at a certain point that they're going to leave production, right? And just run the team. So the first step, I of course knew what the answer is. The first step for any of you who want to get out of production, the very first step is paying yourself the same split that your team has, that your team agents are paying. Until your P&L is profitable and the numbers work with you paying yourself, let's just use 50% as just a good general average. If your team members are paying 50%, you need to pay yourself 50% split of your own personal production and put the other 50% back into the team. That's when I'm coaching people, when I'm talking to people, nothing can happen until we see the numbers done that way. Sometimes what you can do is you can go back retroactive 12 months and you can run your P&L as if you did that. And if you're not capable of that, a bookkeeper, an accountant, and it's pretty easy for someone to do. And you can say, okay, we still would have been at, 20% profitability or, whatever that number is there. So we all know that here. That's the first step. Because, well, I shouldn't say because, why would that be the first step? Does anyone want to address that? I'm happy to, but I feel like
you just have to know that the bottom line net amount is enough to support your lifestyle.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, in reality is I took it a step further and I was like, if I made 0 sales and it was just my team's sales, I said, am I profiting enough each month that the team doesn't need me and I don't need me?
So that's different. So I love that. So I'm hearing 3 things. I'm hearing 1, we pay ourselves the same split as our agents. Number 2, I'm hearing Sarissa say she actually ran her P&L without her own production to see how she would do, right? Which is interesting, Sarissa, because you were so involved in your transition. That's fascinating to me, because to me, if you run it with yourself at the same cost of sale as your team, and you plan on being really present for the baton handoff, you're going to probably get the business anyway, especially during an interim period. So that's really conservative, which I like. I like that like a lot. I like it that you did that. But you also mentioned another metric that you were looking at, Sarissa. What was that? What were you saying that you needed to have happen before you did this? Oh, you needed to have an agent who you felt comfortable with giving your own book to.
You've got to have a strong agent that can take the lead on, the client that really needs that expertise. You've got to have that person in there, I think.
Yeah. Okay, good. This is great. This is great. I'm learning a lot too. I wish I could take notes of my own.
Hey, Vija, one thing, a couple of years ago, I did a breakout at Keller Williams Family Reunion, and I just said, who wants to be out of production? This was like maybe 8 years ago. And I had, 30 people came to that. And I was so shocked at the consensus that came around. The reason that people hadn't moved toward getting out of production yet, they didn't know what they would do instead. Like they had never considered what they would do instead. So there was no incentive or motivation to take those actions. Right?
Well, let's talk about that, because you have 2 choices if you want to get out of production. One of them is to focus on company growth, which is, recruiting and increasing leads and lead distribution, coaching, training, per agent productivity, right? And the second thing is to have a self-managed business so that you can go and have a life either focused on other businesses, focused on family or other things.
Or just quit doing it and let it die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a choice.
Yeah. I think that that's a good comment because not everybody does want to get out of production. I mean, this particular webinar is focused on those who want to, but not everybody does. And it's a great place to be. If you love your life and you love selling real estate, it's an extraordinarily profitable, high cash flow business to be in. Great.
Right.
Yeah.
The people here, we choose something different.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with either way. Like I have some friends that sell really high-end real estate. They actually have teams, and the team's a little bit more of like, it's an energy drain. Going out with these clients and showing these great houses is really where I get my passion. And a lot of them have partnered with Place or something like that so that they could have a business running while they still did what they loved.
That's right, Nick. That's so true. That's so true. So staying on you, Nick, a little bit, because I want to kind of have you walk us through your baton path. So you get back from your TV show, you're like, no, I'm determined to not get back into it. Can you walk us through kind of the steps that you went through to replace yourself? Because it had already started in your absence.
Yeah, it started with the reason why. I'm going to give you the very shortened version of this that I tell, but I had a girlfriend. We got into a heated discussion. She slammed the door and said, you always work, you only work, you all you care about is work, you're a terrible boyfriend. And I thought, nah, she's crazy. So then I had a next girlfriend and we got into a heated discussion, and she got to the door and she said, all you do is work, all you care about is work, all you do ever do is work. You're a terrible boyfriend, you're going to make a terrible husband. She slammed the door and I thought, she's crazy. Then I had a third girlfriend. I'm not very smart, so it takes me time. But my third girlfriend, we got into a heated discussion and she started stomping through the door. And I knew, I was like, wait. Let me give you the script. I know what you're going to say. Let me make sure you're prepared for this. And she got to the door and she said, all you do is work. All you care about is work. You're a terrible boyfriend. You're going to be a terrible husband and a terrible father. That was the one. And that was the moment where I realized building a business was about my life and as a father and being there for my family. So here I am, 100% single. This girl hates me. She just left. I have no prospects for having marriage or birth or any of this other stuff. And I realized at that moment, that's what I needed to build. I needed to build an organization where, today I've got 3 kids, 6, 3, and 1. I coach every sports team. I'm home by 5 o'clock to be with the kids and to be having dinner with them. And that was my one thing. That was my big why. So I coach lacrosse, basketball, soccer. I take them to swimming, you name it. I wanted to be there to be a good father and a good husband. And until that moment, I didn't realize why I wanted to get out of business and why I wanted to focus on building it as a business.
Well, I love that because you really did both things that we talked about. You focused it on growing your business and you used your time elsewhere. You did both of those things. So I think that's really fair.
Yeah, once a year, I send each one of those girls flowers and thank them.
Do you really?
No.
Oh,
God, no! Come on.
That's pretty God. So, okay. So that's your why. So the first step that you really did in your baton pass, is you attached it to a why. But pragmatically, tactically, how did that really look? So the first person database calls in, right? What happens?
Yeah. So, I would love to help you find that next house. This is going to be amazing. When do you want to start? What are you looking for? I had a whole meeting and then it was like, listen, I've got a partner. I always refer to my other agents as partner. I've got a partner I want to bring in on this. I think he really knows exactly the neighborhoods you're thinking of. He's been in a few of them already. I want to get him into the conversation and make sure you're getting that full perspective. Everybody always says yes. Hey, when would you like to see properties this weekend? You know what? No problem. I'm actually out of town this weekend, but so-and-so is here and be happy to do it. Will you do me a favor? I'm going to be down the beach, or I'm going to be wherever I am. Would you give me a call after and let me know how it goes and what you thought? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And they go out with that other person 2 or 3 times. They still reach out to me. They still check in. I still, will call and say, how are things going? Anything else you need? But my physical time and presence is not there. I'm making phone calls. I'm checking in. I'm doing it during my time, which is 9 to 5. That's when I'm reaching out and checking in. Evenings, weekends, I'm not in conversation with anybody. But I had to constantly keep my finger on the pulse to find out what's going well, what's not going well. And things get dropped and balls get dropped and misunderstandings happen. And I have to come in and save some things. I might even have to get back into the transaction to save it. But all of that is learning experiences, and you have to let people fail and you have to let people learn.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So Sarissa and Barb, did that look similar for you guys? Anything you would add, when you kind of in those early days when you were starting to transition?
Very much so. I mean, it's still like that from time to time, that you have to take things back, but the biggest thing is like Nick said, I want their success. I want my agents to be successful. And I'm going to give them enough space that they're going to fail sometime. And I'm okay with that. Part of that comes for me from early on saying I'm going to have buckets of income besides this. I mean, my husband retired that many years ago and he was a teacher. So it's not like we have a big stream coming from somewhere else. So my intention early on in the last 15 years I set a number not in total wealth. I had that number as well. But the number that I looked at was residual income. And how did I build that sufficient that if I had nothing that ever came from the team, then I'm still just fine. And I built things that way along the way. So I don't have the, oh my gosh, they're going to lose this deal and that means I'm not going to get my whatever. Like I don't have any of those fears or concerns. It makes it much easier to allow them to grow.
I'm hearing that's really smart and really wise. Like I'm hearing you say, look, not only does your team need to be prepared for this, you need to make sure that you're building passive or residual income coming in during this process so that one day we're not reliant on just our real estate commission as our income that we need.
And I was forced to do that. I was on an airplane once again, coming home from a family reunion. I was sitting next to probably a MAPS coach or something. And he did not want to talk to me. He was already burnt out from what I was talking about. I was very excited and I talked to him all the way.
And anyway, for all of you guys who are watching is a real estate coaching organization.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So he demanded of me what my number was. What is your monthly number? And I said, well, I don't know. And then he said, well, if you don't just pick one. I said, well, if I'm just going to pick one, and I picked a number. I came home, my husband said, like, we don't need that residual. Like, are you ever going to stop? And if you're an achiever personality, the growth and the moving forward is what gives you energy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm now confidently at that monthly number with or without real estate. And I have 4 months of business reserves set up. So if we made no money, we went 100% in the hole every month, that, I'm fine for a full 4 months. And I've got a team that is going to support the growth of that, not just myself.
Okay.
So that was a big intentional piece along the way.
Yep. I'm hearing 4 months reserves. I'm hearing make sure the team can, pay the bills, pay the expenses, stay afloat without your own production, paying yourself the same split as the team agents are paying. And then, working towards passive and residual income, maybe it's verticals, maybe it's mortgage, escrow, title, maybe it's real estate investments, maybe it's other businesses that you're involved in. Fair? If I missed anything, rev share. A lot of you guys have great rev share organizations. Okay.
Business needs to have reserves, but you personally need to have the reserves as well. Like, so if you don't, that would be one of the steps that I'd be like, is my business ready for me to step out? Like that would be another.
Yeah. So
And,
yeah,
like, all of
exactly.
us are in different life stages, and all of us have different
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
I have a stepdaughter off in college, and we got to buy a car for the next one, coming up, and then 2 more after that. And then, like, Barb is in a different life stage, and
Yeah, I have Social Security coming soon. Like,
well,
yeah,
but, like, I think that what I love is
true.
no, like, right or wrong. You don't have to step
Yeah.
out. You can if you want to. Like, just because everyone thinks that's the next thing doesn't mean that has to be the next thing for you, or it has to be right now. And once again, like, where are you using your strengths? If you freaking still love selling, like Nick said, then, like, why would you not
So, yeah.
do that? Like, you should end the day every day going, I loved today.
I mean,
I
I can
love, you know,
actually see it. I can see a day where I'm out of the business completely and I still sell a house or two because I enjoy doing it, but not, just because I want to. But my next step is to get out of the everyday running of the business also.
my 83-year-old dad comes in the office a couple days a week. He makes he makes more than most agents combined, makes hundreds of thousands a year. He still does his big land develop. He works with builders and developers, still does land deals. Him and my mom go on cruises, like 8-week cruises. He's semi-retired. He doesn't want to stop. He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves the purpose. He's like, oh, I love it when you're all here. Like, he comes in on Mondays because it's team meeting day. It's the cutest thing. He gets his little cubicle. So to me, when we talk about going out of production, it's really more going into a mode where we're choosing what we want to do. It's not a 0 or a 12. It's an, I don't know. I want to go show my friend a waterfront home and write it up and remember the paperwork once a year. Nick, you probably didn't even know what addendums to use, I'm guessing, but maybe you did. Okay. I love this so much. So I want to dive a little bit more into the financials. So, is it true or false? Is it true that when you go out of production, your profit margin significantly declines? True or false?
False. Well, depending if you set it up right. Yeah.
Yeah, it all depends on how you track it. Like that's the biggest mistakes I see people do is they track everything they do plus the team's profit as their profit. And that's not real. Like, if you step out of production, someone else has to take that buyer or take that seller. So you really should be paying yourself, your team split, and using that as your cost of sale. And then at the bottom, that'll give you your true net, even though you get your true net from the business, and then you also get your real estate commissions from the business. So your total is exactly the same, but you need to know what your true net is. And I've seen countless agents that have 5, 7, 8, 10 people on their team, and they've always run it where their commission goes down to the bottom line as well. And then when they actually look at the numbers, they're losing money on their entire team, and they're only surviving on their own production.
I've seen 40 or 50 P&Ls, I don't know, in the last year from different teams of different brokerages, different sizes. And 90% of teams pay themselves this way. The team owner puts 100% of their commission into the team P&L, pulls out a salary. Typically, that salary is a small portion of their commission. And then they take out draws, which I have no problem with. They take out draws, owner draws on profit when available. But to Nick's point, the problem is if they're putting their commission at 100%, and everyone else is say on a 50-50 split, well, there's a false read, because all of a sudden their cost of sale, if they're 50% of the business, is 25%. And they're like, I look pretty good. My 45-50% expenses, I'm at 20, that's a 25% margin. Like, I'm okay, like, I'm good. The problem is they're not. When they put themselves at 50-50, and if their expenses are 45%, I see this a lot, they're at a 5% margin.
Yeah.
They're really not there, or maybe that math didn't math. But the point is, to Nick's point, the very first step is you have to put, as the team owner, you have to put your own production as a cost of sale. Second question, because I think there is this myth going around for years on this. Do we have to pay ourselves a salary as a team owner? Because in order to replace myself, I have to pay myself the salary that it would cost to replace myself.
I did that early on in my P&L, like, many years ago. I haven't done it since then.
And
I do. I pay myself a monthly salary for being the team leader because I know when I don't want to do it anymore, someone else is going to step in that. And that gives me a truer net profit because I know that I'm actually doing a job. So if I'm not doing it, somebody has to. And I think also for tax purposes, like paying yourself something. But I think that one is less egregious as the commission.
Mhm. What about you, Sarissa?
I started out years ago paying myself a salary, and then when I became a partner with Place, like I just moved right into the model of being on the same split as my agents. But I think for me, like the next iteration would be what Nick does, and I've thought about that a lot over the last couple of years, because I got to a point where I could have paid for my replacement. But I would have had, numbers have to be what they are in order to hire yourself. So I think that would just be the next step for me and it's very smart,
Yeah, that's really
When
good.
I think about the financials, Via, I also think the person that I have identified to take over with me, she is an agent. She's our lead agent, has been with me for 8 years and done several roles on the team. And I play with, is there amount of profit that I feel like I still want to retain?
Mhm.
And is the amount that's left sufficient to support that person in carrying the role
Mhm.
of CEO?
Yeah.
Rather than a salary, that person, in my world, the way I'm structuring it is she wouldn't get a salary. She would be a profit owner base.
Are you guys, when Barb and Nick, I'm curious, when you talk about replacing yourself, do you think of that person as a CEO or a director of sales?
I think it could be either, depending on where the talent lies. This is how I think of it. I think there are 6 components to doing business. In the production side, there's getting business, doing business, and retaining your client for life. On the growth side, it's attracting talent, training talent, and retaining talent. Somebody has to own and lead and be successful at each of those 6 components. So if your director of operations is phenomenal at that, they could probably lead the company from a business perspective. If your director of sales is phenomenal at the greater part, then they could do it. So I think it's the human, not necessarily the role. I don't know. That's my thought.
Thank you. Nick, what about you? Do you see a CEO completely taking your business over so it's 100% self-managed? Or do you think a real estate team, always sort of needs the leader owner to be somewhat involved, even if it's not day to day?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest struggle that people have. I mean, if you look at every agent who's gotten out of the business and replaced themselves with a CEO, what's happened to their business over the next 2 to 4 years? It's literally like a plane crash every single time. And it's not that we're hiring the wrong person, it's that real estate is a personal business. And if you work for my team, then as the leader of the team, you're kind of the sun in the universe and everybody circles around you. And even if I step out and replace myself with Sarissa or with Via or Barb, and I put you guys who are super talented, everything I know, you could run the team just as well. There's always going to be people go, well, she's not Nick or he's not Nick, regardless of whether you're better than me or not. There's always going to be that. So when I was looking for what is my next evolution of this, and I started thinking the same thing, and then I'm like, wow, this is not going to work. And then it's like, all right, you got to develop somebody from within, but you still have the part of, well, why them? Why not me? And you have some struggle there. So I think it's kind of a combination of, I think you need a director of sales to be there, boots on the ground, running everything with the sales organization. But then, I mean, candidly, that's one of the reasons that I joined Place, is that so that whoever replaces me doesn't have to be Nick Waldner. They have to run the place model for operations, run the place model for lead gen, run the place model. And now everybody in the organization, if we're spending the next 3-4 years with me running it and running the place models, when I replace myself and someone else steps in to run the place models, neither one of us we're no longer the son of our universe. Like all of a sudden, as long as we're running the place models and everybody's profitable and everybody's growing, they really don't care who's in charge of making sure we're running the models. Where right now, for most of us, if we leave, the business is done.
Yeah, because they have to replace you. I'd have the same thought. The person that's going to be me, I have a business partners, right? My partners replaced, and the person that replaces me is only the partner still. And my other partner isn't gone. They're still there. Sorry, Sarissa.
No, you're good. The other thing I think about is just the whole definition of leverage, right? Like incrementally removing yourself from all parts of the transaction as you increase your dollar per hour or whatever that saying is, right? So if you can incrementally remove yourself and the world still goes around and you continue like small baby steps of removing yourself, at the end, it's not a shock when Nick is gone because like he's been responsible for smaller chunks over the years. And so therefore, like it's not that shock because most people, you know, in the world are just not that great with change. And so the less you can make it feel like a freaking Band-Aid ripped off, the less they're freaking out.
Yeah.
Are you saying that because I have a Paw Patrol Band-Aid?
Paw Patrol.
I didn't even see that. I didn't even know
that. Number one dad right there.
What's interesting about this conversation and what I didn't say earlier on is that I rebooted my team after sunsetting it to come to work for Ben, who has us working 80 hours a week, so there's not a lot of time for a team. But we restarted our team, and I partnered with my brother to run the day-to-day. And so I have started a team again from scratch this time. Sarissa, I think about that all the time. Like, can you do it again? Like, because I had that one team and I used to always say that, well, I know that I can rebuild it again. I'm doing it right now. And it's without me in production. I'm going to sell, 12 homes this year maybe, but it's really without me in production. And I love what you said about like, they don't know any different. They don't know any different. It's frameworked and the expectations are managed from the absolute first recruiting conversation. It's still called Vija Real Estate. They understand what my role is. I breeze in, I breeze out. There's like 3 things I do and everybody knows that. And it is great. Paul's a better day-to-day manager than me. Like they're lucky to have him. And so it's an interesting perspective because I too have like exited stage left on all of this. And it's been really, really great talking to you guys. As we wrap up, is there anything that is coming into your head that you'd love to share that I didn't ask you on getting out of production? Maybe some of the challenges.
One thought came to me in how I thought early on I would do it. Early on, I had a specialty model. So I had buyer's agents and listing agents. And I knew I could figure out how to replace myself working with the buyers, right? You had buyer's agents and they work with the buyers. I thought that the way to get out of the other piece of the production, which was the sellers, was to just get listing agents. What I found was when I brought a person in and said, okay, you're going to be a listing agent, first, I probably didn't hire well in the first place, but I wasn't willing to give it away to them. What I did to get out of listings was I brought a person in who had experience in real estate, sales and converting with a builder, but not, in resale. So I brought her in and I said, okay, I'm going to pay you. She needed to make $70,000 a year. So I said, okay, and the others I had paid salaries and then they didn't do anything and they weren't doing anything. So I didn't want to give them my business and it just crumbled every time, probably 5 times it crumbled. So this person, I paid her $2,000 a month. So $24,000 was her base, $2,000 a month. And she got 5% override on everything I did. Now, this was when I was doing 100 or 120 listings every year. So that override plus her base got her there. She sat beside me in my office every single day. She had to lead generate just like I did. She went on every single appointment. We went on probably 160 listing appointments. She did not lead out for 9 months. And she wouldn't still have let out, except I was in Africa and, you know, I wasn't there to help her. And she went, oh my gosh, I set an appointment. I'm going to have to do it myself. And then she trained someone under her. I called her a listing manager, and then she trained a listing manager. And I was very, very, very confident for her to take anything. So then I could do that handoff every single time to her. That person she trained is still here today, and she is the one who said, I'm willing to lead this team and take over in my pace. It's going to happen organically rather than hiring from the outside a CEO. That's how I'm going to do it. But that's how I finally got out of the listing side.
You know, I love that Charlotte Mabry put in the chat. She's like, you just can't decide a week and then a week later, you know, I'm out of production. Like, you have to plan this, you have to go on that. It took Ben a long time, it took me, it took all of us are talking about months into potentially years, you know, doing this. So I love that. Sarissa, Nick, anything else to add?
I said, or you have to go on a show, you know, like Nick,
Yeah.
it was out like that.
You know, it's, go ahead.
You forced your hand though, Nick, you know?
And the funny part was, like, we had a really successful season. They came back and they picked us up for a second and third season, which meant I'd be now traveling for 14 or 15 months. I had recently got engaged, and I was like, my fiance was like, all right, I'll see you at the altar. I'll let you know the date so you can come home that day. And I really thought about it, and I was like, did I take this TV show because I wanted to be a TV star, or did I do it because it was a way to get out of my business? And I decided that's what it was. So I turned down the next 2 seasons and got and stayed in real estate because my NY has never changed with the kids in my family. So the TV thing would never work. It's the same problem. So it was an easy decision to give up a really cool, fun stuff.
That sounds like a hard decision. So that's cool that it was easy. That's good. Sarissa, any final wisdom for us?
The only thing that comes to mind is, as I think back about what I would do a little differently is, you know, as I grew my team, I realized that the majority of my resources were focused on recruiting, training, and retaining, unfortunately, like my bottom 50% talent. Like when I looked at the P&L, I'm like, this is where our funds are going. This is where our people are needed that we have to pay to help with these things. And I realized, like, I needed to balance that out a bit better so that my top people, who were actually the ones paying into the pot that funded all of that, they felt like the value was going to where they wanted it to go to. So when I look back, that's a change I'll have to continue to rethink is, are the people that are actually paying into the team funds the ones getting the majority of the value, or are they not? Because I had it a little bit flip-flopped.
That's really good. Really good. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Nick Waldner, Sarissa Jornad, and Barb Dopp, we appreciate you. This is one of those topics that has so many nuances. It's not just like black and white, and there's so many things to consider. So I thank you very much. And you're all very easily Googleable, right? And so I know that if anyone wants to get a hold of you, they will. And please send your referrals to these 3 amazing people in Maryland, Dallas, and Boise, Idaho.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.